and so we went down there one Sunday to watch the jousting, which of course is as fake as WWE wrestling. But they explain, all about jousting and the various mounted competitions that they do with lances and spears and what have you. And the reason why they have a sort of a separation between the horses when they are jousting, and it has absolutely nothing to do with to protect the men on the horses, because they're a dime a dozen. The problem is having a trained horse. That's a big deal. So when you're practicing, you don't want your horses running into each other and getting damaged, or lances breaking and spearing a horse. So the lists, the wall down the middle, which is called the lists, is there to basically protect the horses, because, and even back in sort of early AD times, that was a thing. I've done the Tower of London a couple of times. I've only done the Crown Jewels once when I was a kid, so I haven't been there any time that I can remember. That's the thing with a lot of London or London attractions. There are you can either get in for free or get in for a certain amount, but then if you want to go down in the basement and look at the Crown Jewels, that's extra, and if you want to do something else, that's extra. St Paul's Cathedral, you can walk into this cathedral and walk around it on the main floor, and that doesn't cost you any money. Obviously, if there's a service going on, then they prefer you not to walk around and sightsee, but at least be respectful of the people who are there for the service. But they have the Whispering Gallery, which takes you up into the just under the big dome, and that you have to pay extra to do, and they have the vaults underneath where various ancient military heroes are buried, and that will cost you extra to go down there. And similarly with the Tower of London, you can wander around most of the Tower of London, but there are areas that will cost you extra. And the accommodation on site is obviously private, because that's where all the beefeaters live, who do the changing of the guard and the key ceremony or whatever it's called at the end of the day. But that's quite fun. Great demand at land handling. Oh, that's nice. And England has a lot of, technically fortified homes, castles. A castle is basically somebody's home that is just heavily fortified to protect it from marauding peasant armies and the like. The castles up in North Wales are rather interesting in that they are not somebody's stately home or whatever. They're actually castles built by the crown, the king at the time, because England was basically, or the English king had basically decided, I want to take over Wales. And so there were a series of wars which basically the Welsh lost because the guy who was holding them together got killed in a skirmish. And for the most part, the English monarch just had the various princelets in Wales fight it out amongst themselves and then come in to take the spoils. And once the country had been captured, or technically principality had been captured, to prevent any peasant uprisings, they built a number of castles along the North Welsh coast. They imported all the stone from Liverpool, they painted them white so they were a little bit more intimidating than just a castle on a hill. And every single one of them had an entrance from the sea that could not be accessed by land. And the premise there was, if the peasants did uprise and try to take the castle, the garrison in the castle could hold them off. But they could get a message out to Liverpool where regular army would board ships and come and reinforce the castle garrison. So much so that most of the garrisons were 13 crossbowmen, or that sort of level of defence. Not particularly many, but they figured 13 crossbowmen could hold off and hire an entire army of peasants for long enough that they could get reinforced from Liverpool. And also, being such a small garrison, it didn't take a lot of money or food supplies to keep them stocked until the reinforcements arrived. Which certainly from my perspective was kind of a surprise, because you kind of think, the retinue of hundreds of men, it's sort of not really, a couple of dozen at the most, because the job there was just to protect the castle, not over the rest of England. Obviously you had the lords of the manor, and they didn't need a retinue to protect their manor. What they were looking for was a retinue to protect the people who grew their food. So they needed more armed men in order to protect the villages around them. Okay, how are we doing here? Did I load that truck up already? I haven't been paying attention, so guess we'll find out soonish. We can drive on the crop again. So let's see what we did. I mean, we're talking about 20 years ago, but we did. I'd never done this particular thing before, but we did the open top bus tours around London, or central London. Basically, it's either a piped recording, or which the driver has to try and keep up with, or it's a real person on a microphone telling you about all the sights as you drive past them. Well, the tickets are good for an entire day. So what we ended up doing, I've never ridden those buses before. I knew about them, but it's sort of, they're kind of pricey. They're not covered by the regular transport pass in London, so you have to pay extra to ride them. But we decided that we would go up to London at midnight, buy a ticket, and get on a bus and just drive the tour at night time, which is quite impressive because obviously all the sites are lit up and everything. You just can't go in them. And then we went home, went to bed, and then sort of mid-morning went back. And because we had the pass, we could use it to travel on the tourist bus. And with the tourist bus pass, you can just get on and get off a tourist bus wherever you want to. So, you get on it and it drives to St Paul's Cathedral. You can jump off, you can wander around St Paul's Cathedral. When the next bus comes along, you can get on that, jump off at the Tower of London or Tower Bridge and do some sightseeing there. We ended up going to the London Dungeon, which is interesting if you like medieval ways of executing people and torturing people. But that was good fun. Enjoyed doing that. We didn't. Mrs. Osa didn't do any of the big museums. We've got the Natural History Museum and the Science Museum. But we didn't end up going there. I did those when I was a kid. It was quite funny. I met up with someone. It would be again around mid 90s. I think I went down to the pub in my by where my parents lived. Bumped into an old school friend and we're chatting away. And he said, took my kid down to the Science Museum. You know they've got an entire room of our childhood. And basically, there is a room at the time there was a room in the Science Museum that had sort of the old Atari game consoles and various toys of our youth. So I'm getting old. The stuff I played with is in a museum. So we had a bit of a laugh about that. But, like I said, I didn't go to the Science Museum Maine since I was a kid. As I said, my grandmother was a member of the National Trust, so she used to go around to museums and stately homes and what have you, and take us kids with her. But there was, early 90s, there was a Star Trek exhibition that pretty much toured the world, and they had a couple of rooms in the Science Museum for about a month. And that was the last time I went to the Science Museum, was for the Star Trek exhibition, which was fun. I think they had Captain Kirk's original seat, but the rest of the bridge display was all replicated. They had uniforms and various props from the show. Can't remember whether the Next Generation had started by that point. Yeah, it must have done, because I worked in the Virgin Game Centre when Star Trek The Next Generation was out. And then I got my big boy job working as a computer programmer. And I took the day off to go to the Star Trek exhibition. We're coming up on 7 o'clock, so I'll probably have to end this stream fairly soon. So I believe dance class finished about 15 minutes ago. But yeah, potatoes. So we've got a tiny bit of potatoes left to do. Look at that tiny bit. Big bit that we've already done. So I'm figuring this field's going to finish before the end of the day, which is good. And we get paid tons of money, which is also good. Again, the plans on this farm is to expand the number of fields we have. So how are we doing? 77%. We'll get paid 33,000 minus the borrowing the equipment fee, plus the bonus money, which could be anything up to 33,000, depending on how efficiently we're pulling potatoes out of the ground. Although I am missing a couple of bits here and there. I'm also only trying to do 4 rows at a time rather than 5. In the hopes that I will not leave so many strips of potatoes still in the ground, although that doesn't seem to be working out too well. For the most part, I think this is a relative success. Crazily enough, I was never really into history at school. Basically because our history teachers kind of were really bad. I've had various teachers who were real enthusiasts of the subjects they taught. And I had other teachers that were just sort of, well, I did this subject because it was easy, and then I became a teacher because I figured it was easy. And then, unfortunately, that's the point where most of our history teachers fell, was just sort of someone who did history because, not because they had any interest in history, but because history was an easy subject at school. And then they became teachers because there's not a lot you can do with a history degree except go and teach it. So, then they were all young, fresh out of college, and just, so learning history at school was just a chore. But since I left school, I got a little bit more interested in history. But you can pick your own, historical points of interest. Once you left school, you're not told, oh, you have to learn this, you have to learn that. So you have to write an essay, pretend, of what it's like to be a kid sweeping chimneys during the Victorian era. So, not interested, sorry, but get me out there and learn about historical stuff. Yeah, it's interesting. So, I wonder if I should have done the outside bit first. Grab that bit there. Okay, that's the long bit of the field done. So yay. It's going to get steadily shorter. And it's still raining. Oi. Potatoes, not the most exciting thing to harvest, but it is worth a lot of money. Although generally I prefer to do sugar beets, because the equipment is a little bit more capable than the potato harvesters. The sugar beet harvester will hold about 40,000 litres, 45,000 litres, which is almost a truckload. So you don't have to keep stopping to unload it. Well, we didn't have much choice on this one. It was... I think there were 2 or 3 fields of potatoes down there. Let's have a look. Yeah, there was the one we're on, there's this one over here. And I figured this one was slightly smaller and closer to home, so probably the best one for us to do. Thought that was the point of streaming, is especially something like this, it's not so much the gameplay, it's the conversation. I mean, okay, with something like a first-person shooter or whatever, that's got action, or even some role-playing games. But farm sim, it's hey, I'm driving up and down a field. It's all I'm going to do today. Engines on, first gear, go. I've quite enjoyed this map. It's interesting. The fields are small, so you can get away. I mean, we've got a 100 horsepower tractor, if that, small Zetor, tractor, 4-shrit harvester, and 3 fields. And I started from scratch, so only 500,000 starting money. So it's quite easy to buy stuff, and as you've seen from the map, there's hundreds of fields, approaching 150 fields, not quite, but close to 150 fields. So there's a lot of fields to do, and a lot of the fields do have contracts. So for the first year I've done, I think, getting on for 50 contracts, and if I keep this up, this playthrough will get me the contract achievement for completing 100 contracts. So, there's all that. So there's ample opportunity to make money. Now, as I said, the map received an update this week, and the description says he's added farmyards and animal placeables or animal points, what have you. So when I started this, there was no animals except chickens. I think now you can get a farm with cows, get a farm with sheep if you want to, and the yards are spread out around the little village where we live. But I don't want to upgrade the map yet, because I determined when I started this almost a year ago, I think, to play 2 full years on seasons. And so that is still the plan, just to see how much of a go of it we can make. And I don't want to mess up the game save by downloading a map that may completely screw up what we already have. So as a bonus episode, once we hit the end of year 2, and we're still only in mid-autumn of the first year, but once I've completed this playthrough, I'll probably update the map and take a look at what it now looks like. But definitely worth playing if you like small farms, old equipment. You can get away with that on a start from scratch. Obviously, if you wanted to go a little bit bigger, you can do a farm manager start with $1 million and buy lots of land and lots of bigger equipment. But you've still got all of the contracts, which are very handy. So this is our tractor, this little thing, and it served me quite well. It's 2-wheel drive, tiny little thing, but it's got enough to do what I need it to do. And the map kind of feels right for where we're at. I believe we're in Eastern Europe somewhere, which is why I picked the Zetor or Zeta, the Fortschritt Harvester. And I believe it's seasons ready. But my only complaint up to now has been there's silage bunkers around the map and various barns around the map, but you can't use them. And I'm wondering whether this latest update has fixed that. Yes, and the thing is with this map is there are no, there's no variability in the starts. You either have, you start with the land and some equipment, or you start with an empty map that you can buy. But there's no farm buildings that are there for new farmer that aren't there for the farm manager or start from scratch. I think I'm probably going to call this now, so I'm going to jump out and we can go over to the yard. Oh, I shouldn't have jumped there, that was a bad idea. Farmhouse visit, there we go. So this is the yard we started with, so the 3-bay with garage doors. This is a great mod spreader for fertilizer and lime, and the weight of my tractor, you definitely need something with wheels, so this works quite nicely with the equipment I have. If I taken something like the Breedle, if I'd taken something like this, I'd have ended up driving around on my back wheels. So that's a good addition for this size of farm. As I said, we do have the chickens, and these are native to the map. This fuel tank, I couldn't make that work. I'm not sure whether I'm supposed to transport fuel to it or whatever. I got this little sprayer, small cultivator. This is my bucket, so I can cart up to 2,000 litres around in the back of that. That's my pallet fork, which fits to the 3-point on the back of the tractor. The tractor doesn't have front mounts. I've got a plough which the tractor can pull. That's the header. That's the only silo that was available on the map. I had to put the deck chairs in to make a sleep point. And then over here on the adjacent pad, I bought a fuel tank so I can refill with fuel, and then the Mercury Farms supply points. have the 3 fields over here. I own this grass field, but I've never really used it because I don't have any grass cutting equipment. But I have this field here, this field over here, and then another one to the other side of that field at the top there. So 3 fairly good sized fields. I haven't sold any of the grains yet, so the grains are all in our. So we made what, 21,000 wheat, 14,000 oats, 16,000 canola. So that's not a bad start. And the store is directly across the road there, which is kind of handy. But we've done contracts all over this map. Been up here, we've been over here, down here, over here, over here. Looking at the contracts now, you've got harvesting 98, 69. I'm not going to be able to do that because it's raining. There's some ploughing. I have not seen a ploughing contract on many maps. That's cool. Fertilizing is common. As I said, a bunch of harvesting contracts that I would love to have done all of the harvesting contracts. 2 days ago that was the plan, but then it started raining. It was up at the top there, it's the damp crop icons on, so it is what it is. I can't harvest anything, so potatoes or sugar beets were the only option. Whole bunch of sell points. There's a sell point over here, there's one there. There's the one there that we're doing the delivery to. There's the BGA. There's the store. There's only one road to this side of the map across a bridge, quite a tight bridge there, so that can be a challenge at times. But apart from that, it's a really nice map. Lots of contracts. Even if you don't have the land to support doing stuff all of your gaming time, you can just go out and do a couple of contracts, which is basically what we're doing. I have oilseed radish there, I think. That field had oilseed radish in. I already ploughed that in. And this field I haven't touched yet, which means I need to put some oilseed radish in that field before the end of the year. And I need to plough that in and plant both of these with a winter crop. What winter crop? What crops did? Oh, that map doesn't show it. So yeah, good map. We have been on this for a total of 38 hours. 1 hour 47 minutes today. Where's the contracts? Count. Oh, 56 contracts done so far. So yeah, I spent a lot of time doing contracts on this map just because. And at the end of this year, I mean, we haven't borrowed any money. We bought the harvester for cash when the harvest period came out because I blitzed contracts to make enough money to buy the harvester. But again, it is what it is. I can't afford anything better than that. But it's sufficient for the fields we have. So, good fun map. Different to what I normally play. But I think, on the whole, it's been good. And I would love to see what the updates are. Because that's going to be something different. Anyway. Click save. And thank you for watching. I will be back on Saturday morning with Oakfield Farm, where we'll have some fun doing something. I honestly don't know what we've got to do because we did the hay, we did the silage. I've compressed the silage and covered it over, and we finished the sugar beet crop. So I think Oakfield Farm, we're now on to a ramp through Christmas and selling stuff and making a lot of money and trying to buy some more fields, maybe some equipment, but that's for Saturday. For right now, have a good evening. I'm out of here.